The disappearance of Rorik and Deline Klugman began not with a dramatic event, but with a profound and unsettling silence. It was a quiet that seeped from the walls of their modest suburban home on the outskirts of Seattle, a silence so heavy it finally compelled their son, Tyron, to use the spare key hidden under a ceramic frog on the porch. The date was September 18, 2015, 1 week after his retired parents had left for a simple, one-night camping trip in the North Cascades. The odor that assaulted him was the first shock, a potent, eye-watering stench of animal waste and decay. The second was the sight that greeted him, a living room torn apart as if by a wild beast, with shredded cushions, overturned furniture, and deep claw marks gouged into the door frames. Following a faint, pathetic scratching, Tyron discovered the source of the destruction, the family's emaciated and dehydrated golden retriever, Sunny, locked in the utility room. The horrific state of the adored pet, left to starve and desperately try to escape, signaled a catastrophic truth. Rorik and Deline had not simply chosen not to return, something had prevented them. Their predictable, gentle world had been violently interrupted. The police response was immediate. The Klugman house was transformed from a peaceful home into an active and bewildering crime scene. Tyron explained his parents were casual outdoor enthusiasts, not hardcore adventurers. They had departed on September 11th for a straightforward overnight stay in North Cascades National Park. As part of the routine missing persons investigation, detectives began gathering background, medical histories, dental records, and digital footprints. It was in Rorik's cloud storage that they found the last known image of the couple, a selfie time-stamped the afternoon of September 11th. The photo captured a moment of serene happiness. Against a backdrop of towering pines and a brilliant blue sky, Rorik, wearing a gray t-shirt with sunglasses pushed into his dark hair and a vibrant orange backpack, smiled affectionately at Deline. She beamed back, her blonde hair windswept, dressed in a bright red jacket and a delicate silver-beaded necklace. They had arrived in the wilderness, happy and together. Then they vanished. The search operation that mobilized in the North Cascades was massive, but it was already handicapped by a 7-day head start. The park is a sprawling, unforgiving wilderness of over 684,000 acres of jagged peaks, deep valleys, and more than 300 glaciers. Finding a single couple in this vastness was a monumental task. After 2 days of searching parking lots and overlooks, the Klugman silver Subaru Outback was found, locked and undisturbed at the Thunder Creek trailhead. It was a point of origin, but it offered no clues, only the confirmation that they had begun their hike. Ground teams, canine units, and helicopters with thermal imaging scoured the well-maintained Thunder Creek Trail and the surrounding valleys. The search was grueling, fought against exhaustion, difficult terrain, and the sinking feeling that they were looking for a ghost. A flicker of hope emerged when a backpacker reported a flash of bright orange fabric in a treacherous scree field high above the valley, a possible match for Rorik's backpack. A high-angle rescue team undertook a dangerous, multi-hour ascent only to find a faded, abandoned piece of climbing gear. The disappointment was crushing. As winter's approach forced the active search to suspend, the prevailing theory became that the Klugmans had succumbed to the elements, their remains lost forever in the immense wilderness. With the wilderness yielding nothing, the investigation turned inward, examining the Klugmans' lives for clues. They were a quiet, well-liked couple with no known enemies. One detail stood out. Rorik, a highly skilled machine technician, had recently been laid off from Van Camp Industries, a local plant specializing in heavy equipment. He had framed it as an early retirement, but detectives had to consider if financial stress or a hidden dispute played a role. An interview with the company's owner, Oswin Van Camp, was unremarkable. He confirmed the layoff was due to redundancy and described it as amicable. The lead seemed to go nowhere, and the case, absent any evidence of foul play, went cold. For nearly 4 years, the mystery sat dormant, a painful open wound for Tieran Klugman. Then, in the summer of 2019, the silence was shattered by a logger named Brody Husted. Working on a remote, decommissioned access road in the adjacent national forest, Husted was clearing debris when he spotted a rusted, abandoned portable wood chipper half sunk in the mud. Deciding to haul it to a disposal site, he attached his winch. As he lifted the heavy machine, a shift in its angle dislodged a compacted clump of debris from its feeding chute. Curious, Husted knelt to examine it. It wasn't just wood pulp and dirt. Embedded within were small, hard, unnerving fragments. A chill ran down his spine. His lifelong experience in the woods told him this was different, something deeply wrong. Alarmed, he immediately radioed for the state police, leaving the chipper hanging from his winch. The response was swift. The remote site was transformed into a major crime scene. Forensic teams meticulously collected the material from the chute and then dismantled the machine itself. Their worst suspicions were confirmed. The chipper's mechanisms were contaminated with biological material. A painstaking search of the surrounding forest floor, sifting through soil and leaf litter, revealed more horrifying finds: highly fragmented human remains. The destruction was extreme. The volume of material recovered alarmingly small, far less than a full body, consisting primarily of smaller bones. It was a disposal method designed for utter annihilation. Attempts to extract DNA failed due to severe degradation, leaving the victim a nameless ghost. Faced with this dead end, investigators expanded their search, employing metal detectors. They knew that non-organic evidence might have survived where tissue had not. Their perseverance was rewarded with the discovery of a small, uniquely crafted silver dental inlay. This single object became the key to the entire mystery. Given the location and the timing, investigators immediately pulled the cold case file of Rorik and Deline Klugman. A forensic odontologist compared the inlay to Rorik's detailed dental records. The match was definitive. The silver inlay belonged to Rorik Klugman. He had not been lost to the wilderness. He had been murdered and partially disposed of in an act of brutal calculation. The case was now a homicide. The discovery raised a haunting new question. If Rorik's remains were here, where was Deline? The break-in, initially seeming unrelated, now felt like a targeted warning. A few days later, the threat turned violent. As Tieran entered his apartment's parking garage, a large, powerful man emerged from the shadows and brutally assaulted him. The message was chillingly clear: stop digging into Van Camp business, or you'll end up like your old man. This explicit threat finally forced authorities to acknowledge the link Tieran had suspected all along. The investigation exploded in scope, becoming a joint operation between homicide detectives and the FBI's Financial Crimes Unit. The focus turned a laser onto Oswin Van Camp and his company. A forensic audit of Van Camp Industries uncovered a sophisticated multi-million-dollar insurance fraud scheme. Van Camp had been systematically reporting expensive machinery as damaged or stolen, collecting massive payouts, and then secretly moving the equipment to warehouses owned by shell corporations to be resold or used off the books. Rorik Klugman, as the lead technician, had been in a unique position to discover this fraud. The $50,000 cash withdrawal Tieran had found was no mystery. It was almost certainly a payoff from Van Camp to buy Rorik's silence, a payoff that ultimately failed. The FBI identified Van Camp's enforcer, Jory Pasternak, a former security foreman with a history of violence who matched the description of Tieran's attacker. Surveillance on a key warehouse revealed Van Camp and Pasternak inside, apparently moving evidence. The decision was made to breach immediately. In a dynamic, overwhelming raid, FBI tactical teams swarmed the warehouse, catching both men by surprise.
Van Camp was apprehended while trying to flee to an office. Pasternak was subdued after a brief, futile attempt to use a forklift as a barricade. Inside, investigators found rows of machinery, each piece a testament to the vast fraud, its serial numbers matching those on fraudulent insurance claims.
Confronted with the mountain of evidence and isolated from his boss, Jory Pasternak's loyalty crumbled. Facing life in prison, he agreed to a deal and confessed to everything. His testimony provided the horrifying final chapter. He confirmed that after Roerich discovered the fraud, Van Camp panicked and ordered their murder. They had stalked the couple to their North Cascades campsite and killed them. The bodies were then transported to a remote warehouse where they were dismembered. The main torsos and limbs were dumped into a deep, abandoned mine shaft in the Cascade foothills. Pasternak was then tasked with disposing of the identifying parts, the heads and hands. Finding the old wood chipper, he saw an opportunity for permanent erasure and used it to grind down these remains, abandoning the machine where it would be found 4 years later. In late 2020, based on Pasternak's testimony and the overwhelming evidence, Oswin Van Camp was convicted of 2 counts of first-degree murder and massive fraud, receiving life imprisonment without parole. Jory Pasternak, for his cooperation, received a reduced but still lengthy sentence. For Tieran Klugman, the verdicts brought a devastating form of closure. The agonizing uncertainty was over, replaced by the horrific truth of his parents' fate. The quiet couple who had driven into the mountains for a peaceful retreat had been ensnared by a greed so vast it demanded their absolute obliteration. Their story ceased to be a wilderness mystery and became a stark testament to the calculated evil that can hide behind a facade of respectability and the relentless pursuit of truth that, even after years of silence, can bring it to light.